Hi, everyone. This is Beth with BethBeutler.com and Hope Unlimited, where we help overwhelmed professionals excel. And I'm delighted today to interview Chris Edmonds of the Purposeful Culture Group. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Beth. Thank you for inviting me on.
And Chris is a author and speaker and executive consultant, and also a musician. So I'll let him tell you a little bit more about himself. And in honor of our conversation today, I'm actually wearing a particular shirt because I'm talking to him from upstate South Carolina, Greenville County, which is fairly spring-like with rain and warm weather. But my green shirt also has a snowflake and the word simplify. So the snowflake, tell them, Chris, why a snowflake is appropriate for you and where you're from.
Well, I live at 8,400 feet in the Rockies outside of Denver, Colorado. So we have about 6 inches of snow on the ground. We live on a street called Snowy Trail, which is very appropriately named. And I was telling Beth, we had 4 inches of snow yesterday. It's now 60 and sunny. And tomorrow we're going to get 6 to 8 inches. So we got the ATV ready, kind of, set for that wonderful plow job that I get to do. So it's still Colorado spring up here.
Okay. Well, my shirt also says simplify, and that's appropriate because we're going to be talking about how to use a calendar.
Yeah.
But I also need to also share with everybody that Chris is one of Hope Unlimited's clients, and one of the clients that I do hand-on work for, and we're approaching about a year of working together. So
exactly.
I found Chris to be a very kind, easy person to work with.
Thank you.
We love having you as part of our client family, Chris. So,
well, and it really does shed light on the issue of virtual teams and calendarization and clarity of expectations and who's doing what when. It can be at the speed of light, pretty confusing, and we don't want to lose things. And you and I haven't lost a thing, I don't think, not yet.
No, I think we've developed a really good workflow, and so that's really great. So,
cool.
Tell us a little bit more about what you do, and also your side interest, if you would, about music. And then
absolutely. Absolutely. So I have been in the consulting business of helping leaders with their culture since 1990. So been around this a while. Also work with the Ken Blanchard companies as a consultant for them. So been speaking, been facilitating, been training, been consulting for a really long time. And what's really gratifying about it is the ability to help leaders be more intentional about the workers experience, the employee experience in their organizations. That really drives me. And so did a book released a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago, called The Culture Engine through John Wiley and Sons. And so it's been very gratifying to have that book gain traction on Amazon and elsewhere. And I'm speaking with clients all the time. I'm consulting with senior leadership teams all the time. I'm using that book as a bit of a guide, a journal, so to speak, a workbook, so to speak. But it's interesting because leaders don't really know what to do with culture. They've never been asked to do that. So I do a lot of education, and then I do a lot of consulting. And in the midst of all of that, in fact, since we're on the laptop, we're going to come over here. We're going to go into the studio because this music life is really fun. And so you see various and sundry acoustic instruments. There's about probably a dozen or more here. Here's the stage Telecaster and the cool little Rickenbacker mandolin. Beautiful Taylor here. So I'm a working musician, been doing that for a long time, lost a semester in college back in the 70s, convinced that I didn't have to finish school, I was going to get a record deal. That didn't work, right? And fascinating, 30 years later, we got a record deal about 5 years ago. And so that was kind of fun. But the industry's changed quite a bit. But we're madly in the midst of learning new songs. We do weddings and corporate events. We do some clubs, but not a lot anymore. So we have a wedding coming up, and we have to learn new songs, which we all whine about. But it's really fun because that's what that audience wants. And it goes back to customer service. If we're not giving an audience what they want, we won't be back.
That's right. You won't be given a gig. So you all see that Chris is juggling a lot of his music life and also his travel life and consulting life. So I've got a few questions I'm going to ask him on the subject of calendar, especially since this month on the blog, it's all things calendar. We have got a whole initiative going with calendar information and tips. So what kind of calendar do you use to manage all your appointments and schedules?
You know, the main calendar is, we're a Mac family. So the main calendar is Apple's built-in calendar. It's an iCal format. Cool thing about the Apple system, and with many calendars, some use, Google Calendar, etc. But the cool thing about the Apple calendar is that with my Apple Watch, I'm kind of a fanboy, sorry, with the MacBook Air, with the Macs here in our office, with my iPhone, everything is synced very, very quickly, and even changes are synced very quickly. And so that's the online calendar that I have. I was just on the phone with our band leader, in fact, who's putting a huge whiteboard up in his office so he and his soon-to-be bride can keep track of their commitments with each other. And I'm thinking,
it's a more organic way. Wow.
It is. Well, it's kind of old school, but she's probably more comfortable doing a tech thing than he is, but they have to figure out what works. And my belief is that it doesn't matter what the system is. If it's Post-its on a wall, that can work, so long as you keep it up to date.
Absolutely.
Sharing it.
That's a great thought. And that's very comforting for people who may be a little nervous about trying to do everything tech.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you. I'm not a Mac. I'm a PC, but same thing with the synchronization using Google Calendar. I love that. Years ago I was looking for syncing, and I was trying to sync Palm Pilot type things.
Yes.
Always
Oh my.
time.
Yeah.
Now I do love that I can have it in 3 or 4 places, and it all.
Yes.
And you can add to it and things from different spots. So
exactly.
Now, do you mix your personal and business calendar together?
I do, and part of that is the benefit of my lovely bride, who doesn't have to travel, but as we have family things that we're doing. She's got things that are happening. We've got a new puppy who's going to the vet periodically to make sure that the puppy is fine, and if she's down the hill, we live up in the mountains, obviously, and if she's down the hill in Denver and doesn't want the new puppy to be by herself, then I've got to be available. I shouldn't be on the phone, right? If I'm gone and she's gone, then the puppy has to be cared for. So one calendar lets me put the band commitments, the travel commitments, the consulting commitments, the Blanchard commitments, my own writing blocking time out and making sure that's rather sane, kind of quiet. And then she's got her life and our family's up here. And so there's a lot of things that she's having to juggle as well. Having multiple calendars just didn't work for us. So we've got one basic platform, and it's, knock on wood, working pretty well today.
So I assume they sync, like what she adds something to the calendar, you'll see it, and vice versa.
Exactly. And of course hers are in a different color than my other 4.
Yeah,
which is great.
And you like colors, that works great. But
exactly.
Very okay. Well, I can understand that. I love how you said down the hill. You're talking about Rocky Mountains.
It's true.
We live in the foothills, which are also beautiful in their own way. They're certainly not as imposing as the Rocky Mountains by any means, but they're greener. So we kind of
are greener.
Both. And so I just think it's funny though. Us is a little bit more of a hill. We're going down again.
Yeah. Down the hill is 3,500 feet plus, right, as you roll down. Exactly.
Now, what would be a tip that you'd offer our readers and our community for, like, if I had to say one tip, maybe you already said it, but for calendar keeping that you find is?
What's critical is to make sure that you write stuff down. So that's the first thing. And the second piece is to keep it up to date. And so one of the interesting challenges that I face is that the Apple Calendar does not have a reminders or task management system built into it. A lot of calendars don't, but there's add-ons, right? There's Google has add-ons, there's reminders in the Apple world, that kind of thing. But for me, I use a task manager called Nozbe, Nozbe. Works very, very well, has teaming abilities, so people can, if they're responsible for a portion of a task, they can add stuff and it doesn't disappear from mine. I can be adding to it as they add to it, that kind of thing. You and I haven't had to use that, but my wife's calendar focus is her to-do list. So she'll actually do her to-dos as calendar entries. Well, I look at it and I go, well, you're not gone, right? You're so some of it is everybody, especially as you have multiple people using a system, whether they have their tasks elsewhere, they're built into the calendar, whatnot. You're going to have to learn to translate what that means for them, and you've got to be able to kind of pose questions. And I'll say, first of all, you spelled dog park with 3 R's, so that's not exactly right, which is the classic spousal kind of problem, another story, right? But the idea is you've got to make sure that you know what they need and that you're clear about what you need. And it doesn't matter what systems are being used, but writing it down, making it formal, and keeping it up to date are the kind of the core tip for me.
Oh, that sounds great. So now I'm going to ask that, you sound so on top of it with your calendar. Can you tell us a time when you messed up?
Yeah, and the biggest fallacies came from the old days of an actual talking about a whiteboard with my band leader. We had a calendar that was a whiteboard set up, and I could write things in. Well, if you dry erase and your hand on the next date kind of erases something,
yeah.
and I did something like that, committed to travel, and I couldn't. So that was a major one because this was probably 10 years ago, but I had said yes. And by saying yes, the client begins to make arrangements. So we actually had that work out okay. For me, the biggest challenge, and it's kind of an interesting one because I'm using yet another interesting calendar tool called Acuity Scheduling, and you and I used it,
yes.
To schedule this. Well, if in Acuity, which is not built into the Apple system, right? It's just available through browser, but it lets you set hours that others can either do a face-to-face meeting, or if you're a massage therapist, right, they can make an appointment. For me, it's all about, and I'm gonna head outside here because the house cleaners are coming. We do not want to get in the way of the house cleaners. But for me, what was a challenge was that I had changed. I had made a change on my calendar in my Apple system, but I didn't change it in Acuity. And I had an important client. This just came 2 weeks ago. An important client made a commitment to, good, let's talk at 10 o'clock on this day, and I wasn't available. I was down the hill.
Oh.
So the challenge again gets to making sure that everything's up to date.
Right.
And that was the challenge I had, is that I had assumed that I had updated my calendar. So now what you see, it's so funny, because what I do now on my calendar is every day in Nosby, which is my task management system, it says update Acuity.
You actually have a task to update.
Exactly, because if I don't update Acuity, then I know I'm going to miss it again.
Okay. Well, see, and that just shows how important it is to pay attention. I know one of my problems is to have a calendar but not really look at it when I decide to agree to something, and trying to make sure I go into it and actually look, because you forget if you've made a commitment to something else and all that. So that's a great tip for us. Thank you.
Sure.
I think you partly already answered this, but would you consider yourself a detailed calendar person? Like if you have a day at home, do you map out your whole day on the calendar for certain tasks and meetings, or do you kind of have more of a blocking time and then?
It's an interesting dynamic because I've got some of my colleagues that are speakers and consultants, and they're very, very diligent. Now I'm very anal and I'm very detailed, but the benefit of my business here the last couple of years is I don't have a lot of calls I have to do. I can schedule those. So I'm blessed with like I've got a video conference I need to do with a client next week, and it's like I can do morning on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And it wasn't like, well, we're gonna have to look out 2 months.
Right.
So what's nice is I've been spoiled and been able to manage writing and to be able to manage calls and kind of last minute stuff that may pop up without having to do such religious blocking of my calendar. And it works okay. The challenge, of course, is that I make my wife work very hard because she knows she can't trust the open slots, right? Because it looks open. I haven't committed to something, but I've got a blog that's due by noon or whatever it is. I'm gonna shoot video for 3 hours, and I haven't put that in. So my
Okay.
wife is actually pushing me more towards being much more obvious about those commitments.
Well, that leads in great to the question about about sharing your calendar. You've always talked about
Yeah.
sharing your calendar, but now you're mentioning that, for her benefit, just the white space on your calendar may not mean it's totally free.
Exactly, which means, and part of the introversion, we're both introverts, which is fascinating. Been married for 38 years, which means I'm trainable. But the idea is that if I'm unclear, if my schedule's not clear, she has to pose a question. Well, if I'm thinking, right, I'm in the middle of writing something, I do the huge heavy sigh when she taps me on the shoulder and says, I have a question. And I do it's like, well, I'm in the middle of a thought. Well, you're always in the middle of something, right? But it's interesting because if it was blocked, she'd know that that was time that I'm trying to be creative, or I'm trying to study, or I'm doing research, or whatever. So even though we have a pretty good routine and a pretty good rhythm, I still drive her crazy, right? Without being specific.
Yeah. Well, you've covered several things for us, and I think it's been fascinating. So I'll let you close with, do you have any last word of wisdom for our readers and community about using a calendar? You've mentioned that it helps in a relationship, so
Absolutely.
that's a good thing.
Absolutely, it
But
does.
any other words of wisdom that I know? Wait a minute. There was one thing I wanted to ask you that I'm going to surprise you.
Sure.
Since you travel so much,
Yeah.
obviously you are not able to control the things that change in the travel world. I know if something happened to you not too long ago, you put on Facebook. Did it stay overnight at an airport when you didn't know you were going to have to do that? So how do you change your calendar, for the next day so that your wife sees all that and all those details? And
Very much, and it's very interesting because the cycle we've gotten into, again, it gets back to rhythm of relationships. I talk to my wife every night if I'm on the road. I don't assume that everything's fine, and she doesn't assume that everything's fine, so we do that connection. And as soon as there's a bump, if I'm supposed to be home at 10 o'clock, and that means I'll be back here by midnight, and all of a sudden the flight gets bumped, and I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to be, well, then that takes time and energy. I've got to communicate that. And Diane would rather hear it face to face, my lovely wife, which means a live phone call. I can text her, but she may not have her phone on after 6 o'clock at night. So there's really that commitment of having to be pretty nimble in informing all people. I call them stakeholders. That may be a kind of a boring business term, but there's a lot of, be it family, right? Be it friends, whatever. It's like, I'm not going to be able to do this now, and we have to change it. But I'd say it all is driven by my very strong hot button, which is making sure I keep my commitments. And so as I make commitments, I want to make sure that I'm behind the scenes, keeping track of those commitments so I can make sure that I am doing what I've promised.
Well, that's a lovely way to end, because, folks, I want to tell you that this is really the essence of what Chris does. I work with the stuff he writes, and so he's very much into the idea that you have values and you have like a personal constitution of values. And what he just mentioned here is it's very important to him to keep commitments. The calendar is obviously just a tool.
It is.
Your commitment as a person, your character, is what decides whether you're going to be on time to meetings, whether you're going to call people when you're not going to make it. And so these are the kind of things that may be a little convicting to hear, but sometimes it's important to establish for yourself, why do I even use a calendar? It's not because it's the thing to do, but it's because I want to communicate with my spouse or my kids or my stakeholders. I love that term, really.
Yeah.
It's important in my life. And I'm going to call them personally, if it not just rely on the calendar if something changes. I love that. And so as we end this conversation, folks, I think that's a great way to end that. The calendar is a tool. It's not to control you. It's a tool to use to help you live out what your true values are. So I encourage you to think about what your values are. And if you want some more information on that for your company, visit Chris at, tell them the places that they can connect with you, Chris.
Probably the best spot to go is my main website, which is drivingresultsthroughculture.com, all one word. And that's where you'll find my research and my posts and my video episodes and podcasts. So that's probably the best place to go. I'm also on Twitter at SC Edmonds, which you'll find all those links on my main website.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and thanks for giving us a lovely scenic view in that the interview too. That's perfect. I know
That
some
is.
of my friends in Greenville County are actually going to be a little jealous of that because they would like to have a little bit more snow once in a while. I know I would, but in a few short hours when you have tons of snow and cold and we're having nice spring weather, then you can be jealous of us.
That's right, and it's totally true. It's like, okay, so we got more snow coming, but it's just the nature of spring up here. So, Beth, just delightful to connect with you. Thank you.
Yes. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to be with us today. You have a
Thank
great
you.
week. Bye.
Bye.